In perfect competition, there's many firms and many consumers all selling the identical good. But monopolistic competition is slightly different. We have many consumers and many producers, but the goods they're selling are slightly different. They're not homogeneous. So one example of this could be tennis shoes. There's many different brands that make tennis shoes, and you as a consumer might have loyalty to one brand over the other. And you might view them as substitutes, but not perfect substitutes. So this leads us into the world of monopolistic competition, meaning that each firm that makes tennis shoes has some market power. And so with that being the case, let's look at our supply and demand curve. So we're going to focus on the firm. So this is going to be what the firm is doing. And because the firm is a price taker, meaning they have market power, their demand curve is not flat. That would be perfect competition. This is more like a monopoly where the demand curve is downward sloping. And with the market power being able to be price setters, then they also face a marginal revenue curve that falls below the demand curve. And because we're looking at the firm, we're going to look at not the supply of the market, but the marginal cost of the individual firm. Now let's go ahead and graph out our average total cost curve. Let's make sure you get it. So remember, the efficient point is right where the average total cost is minimized at the marginal cost. So there we have our average total cost. So we can then set our price and quantity. Remember our rule to determine the optimal quantity for monopoly, and that's going to be the same for monopolistic competition, is going to be determined where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And so that happens right here at this point. So I'm going to draw a line straight down, and that's going to be the quantity of monopolistic competition. I take that quantity and I bring it up into the demand equation, and this is going to be the price that they're going to charge. So that's how I determine price and quantity in a monopolistic competition. Now from this, we can also identify that there's this area right here where price minus average total cost is positive. So in this case, profits are positive. In the short run, the firm is making money or is making a positive profit. Well, if that's the case, what we'd expect to happen in perfect competition is that there's entry. We'd expect that to also happen for monopolies, but in monopoly, there's barriers to entry. But in perfect competition, there's not barriers to entry, and in monopolistic competition, there's also not barriers to entry. So when one firm is making a profit, we would expect to see entry of other firms into the market. And when that happens, we come back over here to our original graphs that we had. So here's our demand and here's our marginal revenue. As there's entry into the market, it's actually going to take away from the demand of this equation. So if this is our demand, as there's entry, the demand curve is going to shift down. And that's going to cause the marginal revenue curve also to shift down. Because these are not perfect substitutes, but they are substitutes. And so what we get for the end game in monopolistic competition is when our demand curve shifts down and our marginal revenue curve also shifts down. So here's our demand, here's our marginal revenue, here's our marginal cost. It's going to shift down until a point where, and I'm going to draw it out this way, where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. This is our quantity, and this is our price. And at that level, the average total cost curve, let's try to draw it a little bit better, is going to hit us at that point there. One more time. I was not an art major. It's going to come here and then come up. This is our new average total cost curve. So this is that point that's going to happen that it's going to be price is going to equal average total cost, which means that profits are zero. And so this is the long run for monopolistic competition, is that profits are zero. But there's also two downsides with this. One is this point right here, the efficient scale is we're not producing at our efficient scale. So we're producing fewer product than is socially optimal, and price is above perfect competition. But you can't resolve that through increased competition, because if you increase the competition, it would lower the demand curve and they'd actually lead to fewer profits. And so this is what the long run looks like, is we have zero economic profits, but we also are producing less and charging more than what might be socially optimal.